They told you the 1980s were all neon lights, blockbuster movies, and booming malls. But beneath the surface of this flashy decade, America was facing economic uncertainty, Cold War fears, and social upheaval. From suburban living rooms to urban streets, from the thrill of arcades to the tragedy of the Challenger disaster, the real story of the 1980s is far more human, gripping, and unforgettable than any pop culture memory can capture. The 1980s in America was a decade of contradictions, a time when neon lights and booming malls hid the anxieties of a nation in flux. To understand the life of ordinary Americans during this transformative era, one must look beyond the headlines and into the rhythms of daily life, into the homes, schools, streets, and workplaces where history quietly unfolded. It began in 1980 with Ronald Reagan's presidential election signaling a new era of conservative politics. Reagan, the former actor turned governor, promised economic revitalization after the turbulent 1970s, marked by stagflation, energy crises, and the shadow of Watergate. The average American in 1980 remembered gas lines, inflation eating away at paychecks, and a sense of national uncertainty. Families huddled around small, boxy televisions to watch news reports of the Iran hostage crisis, a 444-day ordeal that had dominated the end of Jimmy Carter's presidency. It was a decade of hope and fear, ambition and insecurity, all coexisting in the daily routines of ordinary people. The economic policies of the Reagan administration, known as Reaganomics, aimed to reduce taxes, deregulate industries, and encourage consumer spending. For many middle-class Americans, this brought the promise of prosperity. Shopping malls multiplied across the suburbs, becoming social hubs where teenagers flocked to see the latest fashion trends, from acid-wash jeans to members-only jackets. Video arcades erupted in popularity, with Pac-Man and Donkey Kong capturing the imagination of a generation. The soundtrack of the decade, Michael Jackson's Thriller, Madonna's Like a Virgin, and Bruce Springsteen's anthems provided the backdrop to daily life, playing from boom boxes and car stereos as families navigated the rhythms of work, school, and weekend leisure. Yet beneath the bright neon veneer, the country grappled with serious challenges. The Cold War persisted, and the nuclear threat remained palpable. Schools held duck and cover drills, and families debated whether to invest in fallout shelters. Meanwhile, the AIDS crisis emerged, initially shrouded in stigma and misunderstanding. By the mid-1980s, cities like New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles became epicenters of activism and fear, as communities struggled to comprehend the disease and its devastating impact on friends and neighbors. For many Americans, life was a balancing act between optimism and anxiety, between the desire for material comfort and the awareness of global instability. In workplaces across the country, the 1980s saw the rise of corporate culture and the yuppie lifestyle. Young professionals in major cities embraced ambitious careers, often working long hours in glass-walled offices while navigating the pressures of Wall Street and the burgeoning tech industry. The IBM PC had arrived in 1981, introducing personal computing to offices and homes alike, and by the latter part of the decade, computers were becoming an integral part of daily life. This was a time when fax machines, cell phones, and early video games began reshaping communication and entertainment, though only a fraction of Americans experienced the cutting edge firsthand. The decade also bore witness to defining political and social events. The Challenger space shuttle disaster in 1986 shocked the nation, reminding Americans of the risks inherent in scientific progress and exploration. The Iran-Contra scandal revealed the complexities and moral ambiguities of Cold War politics.
Meanwhile, civil rights struggles continued, with African Americans, women, and LGBTQ+ communities advocating for equality in workplaces, schools, and public life. For many, these battles were not just headlines, they were realities that shaped daily interactions, career opportunities, and personal safety. In households, life blended routine with innovation. Kitchens hummed with the whirring of new appliances like microwave ovens and coffee makers, while families debated what to watch on cable television, a medium that exploded in the 1980s with channels like MTV, CNN, and Nickelodeon. Children played outside in suburban neighborhoods, riding BMX bikes and collecting baseball cards, while teenagers experimented with fashion, music, and cultural expression. The video rental store became a sacred weekend destination, and the arcade offered both excitement and a sense of community. Life was materially richer than in previous decades, but the pace of change often brought stress and uncertainty. Culturally, the 1980s were defined by bold self-expression. The rise of hip-hop in New York City, spearheaded by artists like Run DMC and LL Cool J, transformed music, fashion, and social identity. Hollywood boomed, producing blockbuster franchises like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Back to the Future, films that would become cultural touchstones for generations. Americans watched these movies in multiplex theaters that sprouted across suburban landscapes, savoring popcorn and soda as they escaped into worlds of adventure and imagination. Meanwhile, sports became a unifying spectacle. The U.S. Olympic hockey team's miracle on ice in 1980 symbolized national pride, while Michael Jordan's rise in the NBA captivated millions. But not all was bright. Urban decay persisted in cities like Detroit and Philadelphia, where economic shifts in manufacturing led to job losses and rising crime. Rural communities faced agricultural challenges, with small farms struggling against corporate consolidation. The crack epidemic emerged in inner cities, devastating families and communities, while the war on drugs sparked fierce debates over policing, justice, and civil liberties. For many Americans, the contrast between the glamour of consumer culture and the harsh realities of inequality was impossible to ignore. By the end of the decade, in 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, symbolizing the nearing end of the Cold War. For Americans, this geopolitical shift represented hope for a new era of global stability, even as domestic challenges, economic disparities, healthcare crises, and cultural divisions remained. The average American had witnessed a decade of profound transformation, a decade of technological leaps, political battles, cultural revolutions, and daily life rhythms that reflected both aspiration and struggle. Looking back, the 1980s in America were more than just a series of events. They were a tapestry of human experiences. Families navigated a changing economy. Teenagers defined themselves through music, fashion, and social trends, and communities confronted crises both medical and social. The decade's legacy is embedded in the cultural references, technological foundations, and political structures that continue to shape American life today. To understand the 1980s is to understand a nation striving to reconcile prosperity with insecurity, optimism with fear, and tradition with change, a nation constantly evolving, much like the people who lived through it.